Welcome to the Best Business Podcast, the podcast for established marketers, entrepreneurs, and CEOs, the ones who want to join me in my mission to create 200 new multi-millionaires who solve world problems with entrepreneurship. If that's you, then this podcast was created to give you access to the tools, training, strategies, and tactics you need to achieve multiple seven-figure profits as soon as possible. This world needs the best business you can build, so please get ready, open your mind, believe you can do this, and let's build a better world together for future generations. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. I'm Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today you guys are in for a really special treat. And before I go on about Max's accomplishments, I really like to take a second first and talk about the man as I know him. Because I haven't known Max for a long time, but when I first met him, I was in LA visiting some good friends, and about 5 of us all together went out for dinner, Max included, and I didn't really know what to expect, but very, very quickly I grew to really love and respect Max. He's just so well-spoken, articulate, the way he even spoke and treated the wait staff. You can just tell he's one of those old-school chivalrous gentlemen. And I could also tell he really lives life to the fullest, both because of how hard and how driven he is and how he just keeps reaching and reaching and reaching, but also from the hilarious practical jokes he plays on his friends, the camaraderie you hear in his voice when he talks about helping other people and those close to him. And it's just really extremely refreshing and inspiring to meet someone so down to earth, personable, who's such a good person, who has also achieved extreme levels of success. In his early days, he attended Columbia University on an academic scholarship majoring economics and German. As a walk-on to the Columbia football team, he earned the All-Ivy honors while setting 5 school records and 1 NCAA record for punt and kickoff returns. After graduating, he went to Navy flight training, earned Top Gun Fighter Pilot distinction, and went on to fly over 100 combat missions in North Vietnam off the carrier USS Midway. After he finished his military career, he led a very distinguished business career creating, launching, and scaling entrepreneurial enterprises domestically and around the world. Additionally, through the consulting firm CRD, he has assisted entrepreneurs everywhere in creating sustainable, fast growth by mastering principles of market differentiation, competitive advantage, and outcomes positioning to drive sales acceleration. The dramatic success of these principles in action has grown his company CRD into a prestigious outcome-driven consulting firm that guarantees increased sales. The proof is always in the pudding, and as part of his proof, he is the founding board member and chief strategic officer for Outback Steakhouse, which went from 1 restaurant to 2,000 restaurants in 20 years. K-Force, which had their initial public offering in 95 at $35 million. In 2012, their revenues were over $1 billion and still growing. Crosswalk.com, which was America's largest Christian internet site. LIME Energy, $4 million to $100+ million revenue in 5 years, which includes going public. And he's also the founder or co-founder of a handful of companies. CRD, which is America's premier sales acceleration company since '81. CRD Capital, which does buy-side target investor analysis for investment banks. CRD Analytics, which built NASDAQ's first sustainability index, the NASDAQ OMX CRD Global Sustainability Index. He's also co-founder of Guardian Lion Wireless, launched the world's first ever 24/7 GPS cellular phone wristwatch for little children to prevent child predation. Carp Vita Inc., which sees life online education menus for organic food products to promote health, vitality, and well-being. Really cool project we talked about over dinner was Rex EMS, which is the world's first foldable, lightweight, transportable stretcher that facilitates rapid extraction of crisis victims in chaotic and battlefield environments by a single rescuer, which is really cool if you know anything about that. Buzz Eon, which exploiting online networks for entrepreneurial companies. They provide a seamless turnkey 24/7 strategic partner to optimize the marketing, sales, impression, and revenue power of the internet, driving competitive advantage as part of the overall go-to market strategy. His awards and recognitions: in '86, he was a Vietnam Veteran Small Business Person of the Year. '87, his consulting firm, was on the Inc. magazine list of 500 fastest growing companies. In '88, he was the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce Small Business Person of the Year. In '91, the SBA nominated him Natural Veteran Advocate of the Year. In '99, he published his best-selling book, The Superman Complex. In 2000, he was awarded the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Humanitarian Award. And of course, As you can tell from this long list of accomplishments and just striving to do the best, he's a top-rated speaker in the world's largest, most prestigious CEO organization, Vistage, and he's made over 600 strategy presentations to companies to help them navigate the treacherous entrepreneurial waters. And again, talking about giving back, he loves mentoring and coaching young men, and he's also the founder of Wingspread, a nonprofit organization for children. Max, you are such a busy man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us.
Please.
How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's a treat for both of us. I sort of wish my parents could have been here to hear your introduction. My dad would have enjoyed it. My mom would have believed it. It's a thrill to be here, and the last thing you said is one of the most important things in my life now, which is coaching and mentoring others and peers, but largely younger gentlemen, people earlier in their careers, trying to make the tough calls that they need to chart a proper life. And if through this time together today we're able to reach, being humble, even change the destiny of even one person, much less many people that listen to your podcast, then this will be eternally special for me.
Yeah, no, and you're right, and I definitely can tell that in your voice. And again, we have a mutual friend, Mark Lack, who actually did an interview with him as well, and yeah, you're just such an awesome Max. I just really enjoyed that, especially the practical jokes that you play, like the extent that you went to just to like put a smile on someone's face. It's just awesome. So, how did you get started in all this? Because one of the things that interests me most about your story is that, you know, you weren't like knocking on doors selling Avon as a kid. You had a military background, but then you transferred and took these transferable skills, whatever they were, maybe we'll talk about those, and went into business and just crushed it. So how did you even get started? Like, how did you even get into entrepreneurship?
Well, I came out of a very special family, started out in Queens, New York. It was a dual immigrant family. My mom was a German immigrant. My dad's dad came from Ireland to be a New York City policeman. And in fact, one of my family heirlooms is his nightstick. Oh, wow. He died early. But the outcropping of that was this dynamic mixture of my parents with an immigrant attitude. And my mother, at my dinner table at night, my mother at one end of the dinner table, the Prussian German that she was, exhorting us to set goals and achieve, pounding the table. You can do this. You can achieve this. Give it a shot. Go for the best. Settle for what you must, but go for the best. And my dad, the Irishman, at the other end saying, let's have a drink and talk about it. As I got older, I started moving to the other end, to my dad's end of the table.
Yeah, I know. We had so much wine that night. It was great wine. It was delicious.
The attitudes that I learned early on were that of achievement and excellence. Shoot for the stars and take what you have to, but regroup and do it again. And so, funny enough, that family and that nuclear unit, my three siblings, sister and two brothers, all became entrepreneurs along the way.
Oh, wow.
In my particular case, it was as a fast-track executive in a wonderful company working for a great entrepreneur by the name of Patrick G. Ryan, who built Aon, the largest insurance brokerage in the world, from scratch. It's just an amazing man. I was like employee number 51. I was there in the very early days. And I had the good fortune of working for him. I moved through the company very quickly. No one had ever moved quite as quickly, from field sales to district manager to area manager to regional manager to national marketing manager, all in about a 5-year period.
Wow.
I got to the home office. It was my dream. Go to the home office, Chicago, Illinois, have a corporate career. And when I got there, I had a startling realization, and that was that I was not good in a corporate environment. I tend to be very pragmatic. For me, the end justifies the means. I'm a little Machiavellian, and the way that I accomplish things, always working toward the good, but doing the smartest thing at this moment to make it happen. And I wasn't good in a corporate structure that required permission and consensus, and not that I'm not a team player. I'm a squadron guy. I flew combat aircraft with my wingman, but I just couldn't stand wasting time or energy, and so it became clear to me that I couldn't stay in the home office, and there was no job higher than mine at that point outside the home office, and so I was led to one conclusion, that was I have to leave and I have to start a business, and that was 1981, and that's exactly what I did.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of people listening might be able to relate to that. Jim Rohn has a quote that I love, and he's like, what is it? A salary will earn you a living, but profits will earn you a fortune. And it sounds kind of like exactly that. And I know what you mean, the corporate thing. It can be really stifling to try to do everything by committee. And so I think you can be a team player, but understand that, when you're a results-oriented person, you get frustrated, as you should be. You should be patiently impatient, or impatiently patient with delays in progress. Right. So what happened then? So you just left, or what was your plan?
I made the worst decision I ever made in my life. I quit my job. Pat Ryan had just put me through the executive MBA program at the University of Chicago, which was a weekend program for executives, which was marvelous. And I loaded up my dear wife, and 3 little children. One was my son, who was just a couple of months old, and put him into the back of an Oldsmobile Cutlass station wagon and drove from Chicago, Illinois to Atlanta, Georgia, and started a business from scratch. I mean from scratch. I don't mean no existing relationships, no existing clients. It was absolute insanity, and I paid for it for about 2 years. I went through every ignominious, embarrassing, humiliating thing you go through, because I had no idea what it took to run the business. I had no idea what it took to build a client base. I had no idea how much capital it would need. And my dear wife, who's, by the way, we'll celebrate next week our 43rd wedding anniversary.
That is awesome.
She was right there with me. And one of the worst moments was, she was standing in her driveway in a nice neighborhood. We bought a nice house, and talking to her neighbor, and a tow truck pulled up and said, "Are you Susan Carey?" She said, "Yes." He backed the tow truck into the driveway and repossessed her car.
Oh, no.
Her neighbor said, so she calls me. I come home from work. She's upset, but she actually handled it beautifully in front of the neighbor. I said, "Well, what did you do in front of the neighbor? Was there any way to sort of to save face?" Save face, She goes, "Yeah." She said, I looked at her, I said, "Oh, that Max. What a funster. Always having surprise repairs done on my car."
You are a bit of a jokester, so...
I am. So, that's as bad as it got. And then gradually we figured out how to run a business, and then we started to build. And have, that's 1981. CRD is still around, still vibrant, still... charting courses for entrepreneurs, still delivering competitive advantage to entrepreneurs that are fighting commodity or large, powerful competitors. So it worked, and along the way I got some other breaks.
Yeah, I guess that's it, right? Isn't that I don't know if it's Abraham Lincoln. I'll study, I'll train, and someday maybe my time will come. What was it that changed over the 2 years? Like, what were you doing wrong in the beginning that you then figured out?
Well, there's a naivete that comes with entrepreneurship. I do a lot of speaking for Inc. magazine, and I often choose to speak to what we call pre-entrepreneurs, people that are thinking about starting a business. And with all the pain in the corporate world these days, and downsizing, and technology replacing people, I mean, there are a lot of displaced people, and unfortunately, when you don't see other alternatives readily available to you, one of the solutions that suggested to you is to start a business.
Right.
And I feel it's my responsibility to tell them the truth. So these people come together. I get 1,000 people in a room, and they're going to start. They're so excited. They're going to take their life savings. They're going to start a business.
Right.
And so my job is to add clarity and truth to that. So I have a great opening, I think, for them to catch their attention. I say, you all want to become entrepreneurs. And I'll raise their hands. I say, okay. I said, tell me, how do you become an entrepreneur? And I said, then they say, first answer is, I make them shout it out. They say, well, you got a good idea. I say, great. Okay, what's the next step? They say, you quit your job. I said, well, here's where we have our first disconnect. We have a little bit of a disconnect here. Semantic disconnect. I said, because when you quit your job, you don't become an entrepreneur. When you quit your job, you become unemployed.
Right.
And entrepreneurship is the art form of becoming employed in your new business. Right. And when you start it, you are not employed. You are unemployed. So I asked them a question. I said, how many of you have ever been unemployed before? No hands go up. How many of you have ever taken a course in being unemployed? How many of you have taken time to understand what it's like psychologically, physiologically, economically, financially, and within the family, relationally within your family, to be unemployed? Yep. And they all look, and then no hands go up. I said, so you're embarking on a career where the predictable outcome is something that you've never done and are not prepared for. So I suggest step back and you rethink this issue. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you to be soulfully honest, painfully honest, as you consider that decision.
Right, about what you're getting into. Because the reality is a lot of people use hope as a strategy, and hope is not a strategy. Hope is a very, very terrible strategy to have. I mean, you need hope, but exactly, like I know from when we talked to you, you are all about preparation and practice. I mean, you talked about how many hours you spent in the simulator for flight school and just drilling and preparing, and just and just how important that is. I mean, Voltaire has a quote: "A plan means nothing, but planning is everything." And I think that it sounds like you really embody that. So.
Eisenhower, by the way, Eisenhower said the same thing. He said the most important aspect to winning a war or a battle is to show up with a great plan. And the plan is valid right up until the first shot is fired.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, that's excellent. I love that. Yeah, Eisenhower said it?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He did.
I love that.
People ask me this, well, why are you successful? And I have to be really candid with you, Dale. I don't consider myself to be all that successful. I've had, as you know, a number of successes, and I've had some major setbacks, even late in life with 9/11 and some other situations. But the answer that I give them, and it starts with those pre-entrepreneurs, is that as an entrepreneur, especially early on, you get 1,000 chances a day to quit. You get 1,000 reasons every day and 1,000 chances every day to quit. And you take one of those chances, you take one of those opportunities to quit, and you're no longer an entrepreneur. And then you are, certainly by some definitions, a failure. And so entrepreneurship is just simply about not quitting. And I have other rules as we go through our time together here that I'd be happy to share, but that's where it starts.
Right. Of course, yeah, to get anywhere, you need to be persistent and dedicated to it. Do you believe in the whole 10,000 hour ideal? Like, is that something that anyone listening to this, regardless whatever stage they're in their business, if they're frustrated or upset or something, they just need to put in more hours to become more proficient and to break through whatever's holding them back?
Well, yes and no. I don't believe there's any substitute for sacrifice and persistence and hard work. I've never been able to find it. Now, there have been some entrepreneurs that we all know that are highly visible that were magical right out of the box. And
right.
It doesn't take you far to take too long to see them, and that's another whole phenomenon. And I was never quite allowed that grace. So what do you do when things aren't going your way? I've cracked a couple of codes. I've one I think we talked about the other night, but we cracked some codes about how to grow a business and what you do when things are not working. And the principle is this: businesses function exactly as they're designed to function. And businesses function, so I can tell an entrepreneur, I can look right in the eye and say, your business is functioning exactly as it's designed to function. He said, well, it's not working at all. I said, I get that, and I'm telling you that that's a design issue first. It's a design of your business model first. And most of us, when we start an entrepreneurial company, we build it based on behavior, not based on design. We have great behaviors of our own, tenacity, persistence, intuition, knowledge, and we bring that to bear. And then we go out and we hire people that mimic that have great intensity and great fire in their belly and all those wonderful things. But as the business, as it starts to gain traction, relying on people's behavior is no longer enough to drive a great business consistently. And entrepreneurs don't get that. And so the response to a setback or a downturn or not being able to respond to a competitor is to work harder, sell harder, put in more time, more energy, more stress, and that's not the solution. The solution is to pull back and to find out where your strategy is broken. So being a military guy, when I flew combat, I flew off an aircraft carrier into in the middle of the night in an airplane all by myself, a single-seat pilot, at 4 o'clock in the morning into a monsoon storm to go and fight over the most heavily defended skies in the world outside of Mother Russia, and that was North Vietnam. So you say, well, what do you need to know before they punch you off the front of the deck? And we used to laughingly say, by the time we got shot off the deck, we already had three things going against us. We were A, heavier than air; B, low on fuel; and C, already on fire. So you say, so I would ask you, so well, if you're going to fly into the jaws of danger in the middle of that, what would you want to know about where you're going, and what intelligence would you want? Right, you got to know the weather, you got to know the geography, you got to know the best way in and the best way out. Even if you have to know where the moon is, because you don't want to put your airplane between a shooter and the moon, because it's like taking a Polaroid picture. Okay, we actually rated the shooters on the ground. We had the good shooters and the bad shooters, and of course our goal was to have the Navy guys fly over the bad shooters and have the Air Force guys fly over the good shooters. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, there's some truth. So we became not addicted, but certainly heavily reliant on intelligence. We would do nothing without intel, and so that transfers for me. That transfers over into business. So the most important thing in your business is not your energy and your vitality. It's the strategy of your company, and the business model that supports that strategy. And you cannot. Here it is. There can be no. Ultimately, there can be no success without strategy, and there can be no strategy without intelligence. So we spend a lot of our time, and you talked about preparation and practice, we spend a lot of our time on research and discovery and intelligence gathering before we make a move.
You know, that's such a key point, too. A friend of mine, Ty Lopez, was talking about, I think it was him that interviewed, but somewhere I heard about an interview with Warren Buffett talking about what one skill helped him achieve his success, and he said it was the ability to say no. Because most of us were just saying yes to everything. And what you said, it sounds almost like similar to that, where for you it's just the ability to say no and hold off until you're confident that until you're confident that the strategy, the plan will execute as expected.
Exactly right. When people ask me, how did Outback go from 1 to 2,000 restaurants in 20 years? I have a very simple answer to that. We were built to grow. We had a design for growth. We had the DNA of growth. We spent so much time designing our business model, our service model, our cooking model, our customer model, our hospitality model, and making sure that it was perfect. And then, when you have a design that's perfect, then you bring in great people who have that great energy and tenacity and commitment to excellence, and you marry the two up. You bring them, and that's when magic takes place. Same with K-Force. Same with Crosswalk. Same with Lime. So it's design first, and then it's behavior second. So let me put this in perspective. So when we go into these entrepreneurial companies that hire CRD to accelerate their sales, that's what we do. And we contractually, after 30 plus years of being in business, we contractually commit to increasing their sales. So obviously we got to be pretty good.
Right.
So it's not uncommon for us. If we were taking an entrepreneurial company and we decided that they had a product worthy of selling to Home Depot or Walmart or some big box, it's not unlikely for us to expend 50% of the total sales resources. That's ultimately all the resources that would be thrown at this possibility, this sales opportunity. It's not unusual for us to expend 50% of those resources up front before we ever make a contact to the target company.
Really, eh?
So you say, well, what are you studying? Well, I'm studying their business model. Right. I'm studying their growth curve. I'm studying their strategic intent. I'm studying what the CEO told the shareholders about the future of the company and what the 5-year plan is and the 3-year plan. And somehow we're going to marry up our client's strategy with a strategy that's already been consecrated at Walmart or Homemart or wherever we're trying to go.
Got it. So
it worked.
Yeah. So how does someone even begin? So someone's listening to the call. They're like, all right, gung ho, I'm all about this. I got to do my research strategy. So what am I looking at? Where do I go? Is it the SBA? You get the stats? Are you looking at past?
So it starts being internet driven, and we actually go a step further. We hire college interns to help on the intelligence side, and for every of our clients, all the clients that engage us, we help them select and hire college interns to do the marketing intel. It's a beautiful thing.
Right. It is, because you get these young, fresh, rabid minds that want to flex those muscles, and and you give them direction and resources and encouragement and an opportunity to kind of demonstrate themselves and apply what they're learning. Because that's a huge problem, I think, personally. This is my own personal philosophy, but with education today, is people just I'm a big firm believer in preparation, but you prepare for 8 years, you come out, and the job you've been training for, doesn't exist, or it's evolved, and a lot of what you learned is gone, and they don't have the experience. It's okay if you got the experience along the way, but so it sounds like it's great for everyone. It's a win-win for everyone involved. Now,
Well, in line with what you said, is what you gained in that educational process was the ability to learn how to learn.
right,
And that's what becomes valuable. And Mark and Jason and all of us, Brian and John and Duke, we are ferocious learners. Every day is what can we learn about this target? What can we learn about this marketplace? What can we learn about these trends? So I can give you, if you want, Daryl, I can give you 5 quick steps as to how to formulate a strategy. 'Cause as a consultant, I spend a lot of our time doing 2 things. Number 1 is taking the abstract and make it real. So when people use an abstract term like strategy or consultative selling or customer intimacy, you have to reduce that to something real. These are all just abstract terms that sound good. So you take the abstract and make it real, and then, as difficult or even more difficult, you have to take the complex and make it simple. So we've become, and you say, one of the things have you learned along the way? One of them is it's all about simplicity. So you constantly have to be taking complex ideas, complex designs, and making them more and more simple, because people today cannot and will not sustainably execute complex things.
right. Yep.
And the good news is that if you take the time and energy to pursue it, you can make them simple.
Right.
And so we do that. That's why it's executable. That's why we can increase sales. So do you want me to quickly go through the 5?
Yes, please. Yep.
Well, the first is, these are questions they need to ask themselves or their team. And if it's like me, if they're starting out by themselves, they just get a mirror and ask themselves. First off is, what is your value creation strategy? How do you create value for your customers? Not what product you sell, and not what benefits do you bring. Ease of use. No. How do you create value for them? And then the second part of the same question is, how do you measure that value? We're all about trying to help people act like a market leader. And so market leaders provide benchmarks and metrics to measure their success. And then they invent those benchmarks and metrics, and then they own the category. And so it doesn't matter how big you are, you can still act like a market leader and be perceived by a market leader, and I'll give you an example of that in a second. So then the next part of that question, so it's how do you create that? What's your value creation strategy? How do you create value? Number 2, how do you measure it? Number 2, how does your customer embrace your value? And how do they measure it? Do they measure it? And if they aren't measuring it, they should be measuring it. And that's your job. So I ask these entrepreneurs, I'll get 15 in a group 4 times a month. Great entrepreneurs, running successful entrepreneurial companies through the Vistage organization. And so I'll ask them, I say, how many of you, raise your hand if in the last year you've led off a discussion with your leadership team starting with, how do we create value for our customers? Not what product do we sell, what service do we, and at most I'll get 1 hand out of the 15. So this is new uncharted territory. Okay, second, what's your value proposition strategy? And so very simply, and you hear that term coming up, so let's reduce that abstraction. What's your value proposition strategy? That's how you articulate your value creation strategy, how you explain your value creation strategy to your best target customers and prospects in a way that they can do 4 things. So how you describe your value creation, your ability to create value to your best target customers and prospects, so they can do 4 things. Number 1, embrace it, means that they see it and want it. Number 2, engage it, means they hire you. Number 3, leverage it, means they let you come in and do what you do best. And number 4, defend it, because they're going to have to defend you inside against other inside motives and outside attack. Quickly, 2 caveats to that. Number 1, by definition, that value proposition must create competitive advantage for your company. In other words, it must distance you from the competitors. And I know that's a tall order, but it's fact. And the second is, regardless of the size of your company, you, as the CEO, you owe that value proposition to your company. And in most companies, Daryl, it's delegated at least to the vice president of sales, maybe to the sales manager, and in many cases it's delegated all the way down to the salesperson.
Really?
Here's your product, here's your service, here's your benefit statement, go get them.
Right. Yeah, I remember we talked about that over dinner, saying that a lot of companies or sales teams just are fragmented. They're not a unified whole, and there's no, just for a lot of them, exactly that. They're just like,
Now they're selling by behavior, not by design.
Right.
And that's killer.
Yep.
No company got great without great sales design. And that means just as much design specificity in how they sell as to the blueprints on how they build computers, design software, build a building, or install capital equipment.
Right.
You have as much ability to have specific design in your selling side as you do on your operational side.
But
Third rule, third strategy rule, what's your customer acquisition strategy? This is where nobody gets here. What's your customer acquisition strategy? Well, we go out and get customers. Well, who picks the customers? Well, the salespeople do. Or people contact us. They respond to a mailer or an ad. They go to our website. They show up.
Yep.
I said, well, if they show up, if they show up based on something your company did, which I think is wonderful, who's in control of who your next customer is?
Yep. Yeah.
They are.
Most companies have no plan to buy customers, and the idea seems foreign to them.
Exactly. So how about this? How about you determine the profile of the kind of company that can best and would best use your services and most value your services? And then you go out and you target them. And that's what we do with companies. So we ask a question of the entrepreneurial companies. Great question, Daryl, for all your listeners. For entrepreneurs far and wide, what percentage of the available universe of companies or individuals that could use what you have, what percentage of the available universe of companies or individuals that could buy what you sell do you have to effectively sell to and close in the next 12 months to have yourself a great year? The answer, unilaterally, Daryl, is 1% or less.
Really?
1% or less. So well, then your challenge is not to go out there and be all things to all people. Your challenge is to find the best 1%.
That's right.
And be prepared to walk away from deals that don't fit your profile, that don't buy your business model, that won't pay your prices.
I love that.
Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, what's your pricing strategy? And here the idea is not what do you charge or are you going to be the low-cost guys, which is not a good idea, but can you use pricing as a tool? Can you use creative pricing to make yourself more valuable to your best target 1%? And then finally, number 5 is, what's your defensive strategy? Once you get in there, how are you going to protect yourselves? How are you going to stay? Because you're going to come under attack. There's a lesson I learned from the venture capital community years ago, making presentations, and went into one of my early presentations, and the first question they asked me was, what's your product? And I explained it pretty well, and they said, what's your market? I did a pretty good job with that. The third question, and this really blew me away, was, what's your exit strategy?
Right.
We haven't even launched the company yet, and they're asking, what's your exit strategy? So when I pulled back after that, I thought about it, because they wanted to know how to get their money out. Their position was, before you even do it, decide the end game.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that everybody that starts a business is looking to get out in 3 years, as the VCs want you to do, but let's transfer that methodology. If you know you're going to be attacked when you get into an account because you're taking it from someone else and you're smaller and you have less resources than some of the big guys, don't wait till that happens to figure out your defensive strategy. Right. When do you think you ought to figure the defensive strategy?
Right, before you even go in.
Before you even go in. And so those 5 things sort of are revelationary to the entrepreneur community, and it gives us a framework to start. And I'll give you 2 summation statements, and then we can go wherever else you want. Say, well, what's the easiest way to start a strategy? Okay, well, first is you determine the answer to the following question. What is it that you can enable? Here's the key word, enable. Forget your product and your service. What is it that you can enable? What is it that you can enable your customer to do with you that they can't do with anyone else, any of your competitors? So, well, can they get product? Sure. Can they get good service? Sure. What is it that you can enable them to do that they can't do with their competitors? And it causes you to go to the place above product and service where true value exists. Things like, can you impact their business model? Can you be accretive to their value proposition? Can you enhance their competitive advantage? Can you give them speed to market advantage? Can you take them to a different demographic than they've been to before? Can you expand their reach? All questions that deal with their business model. And so then you ask a question. So if I asked you to go out and impact somebody's business model, what would you first have to know?
You have to understand the model.
Understand the model. Back to intelligence, okay? So that's the first trick, and the second trick is, same question, phrased slightly differently. Who is it on the other side of the table that you can, on the target company, who is it on the other side of the table that you can assist, or you can empower to accomplish something with you that they can't accomplish with your competitor? So now we make it personal. Now it's an individual. Who is it that you can empower to do something with you that they couldn't do with someone else? And so now we're making it personal. Whose career could you impact? Who could you move to the top of their heap? Who could you get recognized and help earn a bonus if you do what you're supposed to do? So part of that intelligence gathering is answering those two questions and finding that individual. Simply stated, you want to sell to the person who has the most to gain or the most to lose, period. And very rarely is it the procurement guy or the buyer.
I'm taking notes as we talk. This is all great questions. Anyone who's listening, you're probably going to want to re-listen to this and write these down and answer them. And what I love is that, it's not like easy, quick answers. And some people might be like, oh, my head hurts from thinking, but that's the real, some of these questions aren't easy to answer, but that's the game. That's what it's going to take to win, right? I mean, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
But there is always a way. There's always a way for a strategy if you have the right intelligence. And sometimes you have to dig. My mom, I told you, she was an elegant immigrant, can-do attitude. And she taught me a rule years ago. She said, I said, well, I've decided this. I think I found the solution. She said, before you do that, just one more swipe at it. Which solution have you not found yet? Which solution have you not seen yet? Go back one more time. And it was amazing how many times you go back and then the breakthrough happens.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I hope I'm not being too didactic.
No. This is perfect. Max. I mean, obviously you've been there. You've been there, done that. You're coming back and you're sharing the wisdom with everyone. And so, no, I think, no, it's fine. You're perfect. One thing I did want to ask you about, when we were having dinner, you talked about it's about getting up and running with the model and then getting the model dialed in. Can we speak to that a little bit about like how do you tweak a model and how do you test it? Because I think a lot of business owners, they're kind of afraid to make certain changes. How do I, test different pricing? How do I do something totally different without cannibalizing my existing customers? And I know that that's something we've already talked about here, is getting the model right, getting the design right. So do you have any suggestions for someone they're like, all right, I have a business and I think I've got a design flaw, and so what do I do? How do I make a change and implement it without, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you why it's been so frustrating in the past. We did a research project with Vistage, and 9 out of 10 Vistage companies, now these are successful entrepreneurial companies.
Right.
These are 10,000 CEOs running businesses anywhere on the small side from 3 to 5 million up to $1 billion. These are successful, okay? And we asked them, and here's the conclusion after this little research junket. 9 out of true or false question. 9 out of 10 entrepreneurial CEOs, Vistage CEOs, make product, service, innovation, launch, differentiation, deletions, partnership decisions. So launching a new product, innovating a new product, launching a new service, innovating a new service, picking a new partner. 9 out of 10 CEOs make those decisions without ever talking to a customer or a prospect.
Oh, it's true.
So that's the starting reality. So just by virtue of reversing that paradigm and starting with intelligence, you're gonna drill intelligence until you find an avenue that aligns with your strength. So it's not unlikely, once again, and anybody can do this. You know, we call, and we have research people, and they interview senior executives in a target company. And they simply say, we're doing research, and here you're a thought leader in your space. I'll talk to you about strategy. 8 or 9 out of 10 executives take that call. So how's your business model changing? Where's your greatest pain? What is the CEO? Where's the pressure moving forward? What's the international competition done to you? And they tell us how their strategy is evolving. And if we get that from 5, 6, 7, 8 different companies, now we know that it's consistent, it's real. Then we'll pull back and say, okay, design your business to help them get where they need to get. And I mean, and that's what you have to do.
Yep. No, that's excellent. That's good. That's really good. And just test it, and to I guess maybe take a small group of people and just have that be a beta project for them.
Absolutely. Once again, back to those interns. Put the interns on the phone. Tell them they're doing a school project. They're a marketing major. It's talking about strategy. People will take the call.
Yep.
I mean, we go to great lengths to capture research. We'll do anything it takes to get the right research.
Right. Well, because it's so critical. I mean, if you make the wrong decision, bad data will kill businesses faster than anything else, because it's like you're flying blind. You're guessing at that point.
And within the company, within the company, you don't get good information flowing up from however your organization, whether it's 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people. Good information doesn't flow up. Salesperson loses the deal. What does the salesperson say?
Oh,
we were too expensive.
Yeah.
The other guys, they cut our price. Is that true? I don't know.
Yep.
But there are two realities. If it isn't true, we got to find out what the real lay of the land was. And number 2, if it is true, then we didn't sell well. Then we didn't have a good sales design.
Yep.
So, well, the bids are in, and so we'll let you know how you did. So great. Let me ask you. You've been conducting this process for your company. We've had a chance to meet a couple of times, present our value proposition. Are we going to win? No, they're going to say, well, I can't tell you that because I don't know what the committee, what the other guy's going to say. Say, great, I understand that. Let me ask you this. If it were your decision to make today, would you choose us? And I said, well, no, I'm not sure I would. Now I know where the disconnect is. So a lot of this, once you get the design right, then it's the techniques and the tactics to get to pure information.
Right. Yeah, that's so powerful.
You put as one of your questions to answer today, I want to make sure this came out. You said, well, what did you learn? What's the most important thing you learned along the way? And, of course, that's incalculable because I've learned so much and I'm still learning. But one thing, and it was not long ago that I learned it, and it could have saved me, I think, a lot of heartache, and that is you never make business decisions out of fear. You never make business decisions out of fear. And I looked to the first 20 years of my entrepreneurial career, every decision I made out of fear. Well, if I don't do this person's going to leave. Well, this person, I really need that person. If I don't do this, they're not going to be happy. If I don't do this for this client, I might lose them. I'm going to change my business model for them, which isn't a good idea, but I have to because I'm afraid. And it also conforms, I'm a Christian, as I think you know, it also conforms with biblical guidance. 365 times in the Bible it says, do not fear. One for every day of the year, do not fear. And one day, this entrepreneur explained this to me, and the light went on. And now I look at decisions, and I was always driven by what if. Well, if I make a decision, what if that person does it? And now I make the best decision, and it's amazing how easy it is to live with the consequences.
Right. No, I think that's a valid point. In fact, it's a different analogy, but for me, it's actually been helping me with chess. I play a lot of chess, and I have a friend that's just been kicking my butt left, right, and center, and I watched like a video on YouTube, and the gentleman was explaining almost like what you said. He was going through a game where he was so reactionary to what the other guy was doing, he just kept getting backed into a corner even more and more and more. And he was talking about how once he realized that and started imposing his own plan instead of reacting to the other guy's plan, it flipped the script for him. And that's exactly what I feel like it's done for chess. And that's almost what you're saying. If you're in fear and you're reacting too much, you're not implementing your own plan, which I think goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the call about planning being so important. And even though the plan, what was the Eisenhower quote?
Is that planning, having a plan is the most important aspect to winning a battle, a war, or a particular battle, and that plan is valid right up until the first shot is fired.
Right. Which is so true. Like I love that though. But you just got to be prepared, and you just need some direction. So, anyways, no, I love that. That's great, and I think, yeah. I mean, I haven't built the companies you have by any means, but I think that's extremely valid. Just even knowing myself, and even from my martial arts background, having coached students and helped them go to competitions and win gold medals, and that you can see guys lose when they get on the mat. Like they get psyched out. The other guy intimidates them. We used to do a thing in resting, and when we would rest, we would have a stare down. You'd rest, but you'd stare down your partner because you'd want to have that game face on because you wouldn't want to show any sign of fear, and you wouldn't want to receive it either. So yeah, no, I think that's really, really valid. So what are kind of the biggest mistakes we talked about? Like I mean, we've gone over a lot of great stuff. There is so much content to this. I myself am already going to, I didn't bring a pad of paper. I've got like 40 post-it notes all around me right now from writing while you've been talking. But what are some of the biggest things you think that hold people back? Like when you go in and talk to a client, you've dropped a lot of wonderful gems here about the strategy and the questions that they need to ask themselves. Is there any sort of habitual thing that you see people doing to shoot themselves in the foot? When they're, when they're trying to get their businesses up and running, when people come to you and they're just either, I don't want to say lost or struggling, but just in general, like, do you see people working really hard, but it would be better? I guess maybe it comes back to strategy.
It comes back to strategy. It comes back to design. And, there can be no strategy without intelligence. It's not that complicated. I will say that I've seen sales go through a couple of generational changes in my life. When I first started selling, it was about presentations. It was about going in and memorizing a presentation, making your presentation. And the only thing wrong with that was you didn't include the guy on the other side of the table, and over time that burned out. Right. Then we went to dialogue, from monologue selling to dialogue-based selling, which was Xerox introduced questions. Tell me about your business. Tell me about your goals. And that worked great for a while because it was so new until everybody was asking the same empty questions. Right. So then I sort of helped perfect the third generation of selling, which is always show up with something of value, that knowledge about them that shows that you've researched them and you know more about them than the last 5 guys that have called on them. And you use that to disrupt the sale and take it in a different direction. This guy says, well, tell me, you got 15 minutes. Tell me what you got. I said, I'd be happy to. But first, if you would just be kind enough to confirm 3 pieces of research that I found about your company and give me some insight as to how they're impacting the business, then I can tailor my presentation to you. All of a sudden, we've changed the direction, and I have control of the sale. I have no intention of making that presentation. But now, in the new world, what we've done is we've regressed, and we've gone back to Generation 1, and we've done it through a thing called a PowerPoint. And PowerPoints are a killer. I don't let any of our clients... Now, there is a place for PowerPoints later on, but not in upfront selling. Yep. Here's the rule, that you need to be able to put your entire business model on one piece of paper. And if you want to see some of those, I can have Kenley send you something. I don't care how complex your business is, to be able to put on one piece of paper, and your opening sales call is all you need is that piece of paper, your intelligence, and a flip chart. And you do a Lou Holtz chalk talk, okay? And the goal of the first time you meet with someone is not to sell them what you have, but you used the word earlier. You said you're really there to buy an opportunity. So we call the first meeting, and we tell the client, the prospect this, we call it an alignment meeting. We're not here to sell anything. We have to find out if you fit our profile and we fit yours. But if not, we shouldn't be talking to each other. Yep. And so the meeting then is entirely different in terms of its structure, because I'm there trying to decide whether to buy this opportunity or not. And so we ask questions, and we show you the characteristics that make somebody a good partner of mine. Right. The whole different out. Is this you? Tell me if you align with this. Yep. We don't want transactional relationships. We want consultative relationships. Does that align with your thinking?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So that will be a help to get it off on the right foot.
No, I think that's huge because I consider myself like I'm a direct response database automation marketer. So that's everything. I mean, data is everything. If humans have this weird thing where we prefer things that are custom fit for us. And like when you buy a shoe, you don't just buy a general shoe. You buy a walking shoe, a hiking shoe, a running shoe. So,
Right.
yeah. So it's exactly what you're saying. You're saying, again, the same thing. Out of the total available universe, for you to have a large-scale business, what percent do you need? If it's only 1%, what 1% is that? And then you want to design and model everything to optimize for that one function, for that one client.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right, Daryl. When you go shopping, you go to the cheese store. Okay, you go to the when you have running shoes, you go to the running shoe store. Yeah. Yeah. See, you want wine, you go to the wine store. It's always specialty driven.
Yep. Yep.
By the way, that doesn't mean by taking narrow niches doesn't mean you don't get a chance to be big. When Nike, the largest shoe manufacturer in the world, athletic shoe manufacturer in the world, when they started, they came in narrow. Remember, they said, "Hey, listen, Adidas and Puma and Converse, you guys have all the worldwide market share. We just have this one little funny shoe, this little running shoe, and we're just coming into the running market. We're not going to bother anybody else."
Right. Yeah.
Then they take the running market and say, "Well, we're going to do tennis shoes now, but don't worry, we're not going to go any further than that. We're not going to go to your other core segments." And then one after another, they took them out in every segment. Yep. So there's a great precedent for that.
No, I think that's we say inch wide, mile deep, and that's exactly it. And you can always build a bridge to other markets, but the worst thing you can do is try to build a business that's for everybody, because then it's for nobody, because you're not really speaking anyone's language, which is exactly what you're talking about with the intelligence and the recon. And
right.
So
let me tell you what's possible. I talk about. I'm working on a new CEO presentation called 10 Steps to Being a Market Leader, and it's 10 things, 10 behaviors that if you do these behaviors, by the way, we're doing it with Buzzy and Rex right now. If you do these 10 steps, the market will perceive you to be a market leader. And so the steps are, one of the steps, the first step is innovate, and the next is change the game, and the other is change the discussion, and the next is control the dialogue, and the next is give a new blueprint for execution, and another is provide benchmarks and metrics, all those things that we've talked about. So this wonderful primetime example of a couple of years ago, Netflix comes into an industry dominated by a giant, Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. Embedded, bricks and mortars, capital investment, great entrepreneurs, everybody lumped into one, Blockbuster. Impenetrable, right? Netflix comes up, starts up, and they innovate, and they change the game. How do they change the game? They change the blueprint for execution. They redefine the space. They say, wait a minute, this isn't about content. This isn't about video content. You can get video content anywhere. It's not about video content. It's about the delivery vehicle, the channels with which people can access it. And we don't think it's smart for people to have to get in their car and drive down to your store, waste gas, waste time, get a babysitter. We think it's much smarter to have a different channel. And we're just going to change the channel. It's the same content. We're just change the channel. We're going to make it cheaper, easier, faster, and more fun to navigate. They took out a market leader in a matter of months. Yep. They put Blockbuster into bankruptcy in a matter of months. Yep. That's what's possible.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so crazy. And it's because they knew the real problem that they were solving for their clients. They had done the research, and they knew exactly what the problem was to solve. I always relate that to newspapers because I think it's the same thing. People get confused. The newspapers thought they were just delivering wads of advertising to people with interesting stories in it, but that wasn't the problem that they were solving for people. And that's why I think so many of them had a hard time adapting. Because they just forgot the game that they were playing, and it sounds like what Blockbuster was doing. They were so caught up in the tactics that they weren't tied to the mission.
Exactly, they forgot that the core had changed, that the consumer preference was changing, that they were anachronistic, they were out of step, yep. And it just took one smart little company to come in and take them out with nothing, no brick and mortar, no nothing, yep. Just a strategy.
Yep. That Netflix is such an interesting story as well. Even yeah, I go on a tangent like that. But they totally You're right. They totally dominate online, and they got their offer dialed in. They had their USP, I guess. It was their free and their winning campaign, which was a free month. And I remember they were all over YouTube forever. And it was shortly after they were on YouTube. All of a sudden, YouTube had this movie tab appear out of nowhere. So they were
Right,
definitely making
exactly.
waves. Yeah, that's awesome. So Max, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. What are you working on these days? What are you excited about?
Well, you asked about quotes that I use. I've had different quotes that drive me through different phases of my life. I'm 67 now. Most people would say the twilight of my career, and I had no intention of slowing down or quitting, but I was edified by a very fine gentleman that I had to share the podium with, the opportunity to share the podium with a number of times. In fact, the last time we were together, I had a chance to introduce him. His name is Zig Ziglar. And many of your viewers and listeners may know Zig. And he was one of the guys that invented motivation and positive thinking, very successful, powerful Christian. And right before he died, he and my preacher, a guy named Ike Reichert here in Atlanta, another great American, they wrote a devotional. And the first page of the devotional in January, I pick it up, and it says, from Zig and Ike, it says, "The day your memories become bigger than your dreams, your soul begins to shrink." The day your memories become bigger than your dreams, your soul begins to shrink. And I look around, and that's me. And so my goals right now are more aggressive than they've ever been. And we're launching Rex and Buzzion. We're using all the rules we've learned along the way to make it just a first-class, world-class banner entry. And I'm going to keep going, and we're going to grow them, and then we're going to exit them, and we're going to grow some more. And I expect to die at the phone or at the computer with my. I'll tell you something interesting, dear. I had a nice experience this week. I was down in Tampa, Florida, which is the home office of Outback, and quite by chance, I was looking to hook up with the CEO, but I hadn't made any advance calls to him. Chris Sullivan, the founding CEO. And I asked a couple of guys if he was in town. They said they thought he might be, but he might be at his Pebble Beach house. And anyway, so I go to our flagship restaurant, Fleming's, a prime steak restaurant, just to regroup. And it's about 5:30 or so. And I walk in, and there's only one guy sitting there at a table doing his notes, and it's Chris Sullivan, the CEO of Outback. So this is like serendipity for me. And so I had a chance to go over with him, and we just caught up for a while. It was just fantastic. He's just a great human being. Now, he built Outback. He is a phenomenally wealthy guy, and he's got 3 restaurant concepts, and we sold out. He sold out. He got his money. He's still on the board. He's got 3 restaurant concepts launching.
Wow.
And he's just as excited and as invigorated as he was when he started Outback, but he's just so much smarter. And so we were talking. I said, "Well, what do you think the number one ingredient? What do you tell he was actually? He was just finishing a meeting where he was coaching another executive in Outback, a wonderful woman by the name of Andy Shaw. And I said, what were you telling her about her career and about her next challenge? And he said, well, I used it. He said it was the F word. I said, the F. And he said, yeah, focus. And he reiterated what I tell myself every day: focus, 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 focus. It's all about focus, focus, focus. Narrow it down, focus, compartmentalize, focus, focus, focus. One challenge at a time. Prioritize them one at a time. You can't multitask, solve multiple challenges. Compartmentalize, focus, focus, focus.
Love that. Love that.
And so the answer is: the day your memories become bigger than your dreams, your soul begins to shrink. The great ones Pat Ryan, the guy who made the Forbes 400 in our lifetime, self-made, just launched about 79 years of age, just sold out of Aon, they made him retire, and just started his newest insurance company. Check him out, Patrick G. Ryan, just started his newest insurance company.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Okay?
That's right.
It's what we do.
Yep.
Okay? Maybe the answer is entrepreneurship isn't what we do. Entrepreneurship is who we are. Okay?
That's a key thing, because I mean, I was blessed. I never, my goal was never to be a world champion in martial arts, but I was blessed to train with world champions and Olympians. And the one thing I learned is their mentality was, when they show up at the competition, they're already the world champion. You don't become ordained a world champion by someone else. You're already the world champion when you show up there. That's just the day the rest of the world finds out, because you've optimized your life. You've got the best schedule, the best routine, the best diet, the best training partners. You are so trapped. It's almost like the quote unquote the trappings of success, because you're not going to go and win a gold medal for an event and then decide to take up ping pong as a new hobby, right? Like, you just, that's who you are. And I had this talk. It was funny. I met up with a friend yesterday. We went out. She was talking about her father and how how he's money smart and invested in real estate and all this stuff. And we were talking about the habits. And it's the whole thing that if he didn't have those, like, she's like, he's got more money than he knows what to do with, and it's kind of ironic because there's all these other people that wish they had that money. And we're like, yeah, but he's got the habit. That's why it's not a problem for him, because he has the habits and the discipline that he doesn't necessarily need it. And it's that unique thing. It's the same thing. Like, if I gave you Arnold Schwarzenegger's body today, would you have the habits to keep it, or would it just waste away? And that's the same thing. It's just those habits day in, day in, which I love what you said, focus. A good friend of mine, he always says, focus, follow one course until successful. And I think that's so valid, especially as entrepreneurs. I think we suffer from the shiny object syndrome, right? Because
we sure do. Oh, that's a killer. I'll give you another part of that, and that is that one of the mentalities, especially now in the technology age, is this, and I'm saying this as a weakness, not as a strength, that the solution to every problem is a new idea. So people stop, they stop on their business model. They stop persisting. They stop going forward. Instead of figuring out how to make that business model work, finding the right intelligence, finding the right target, they shift and they come up with another idea.
Yep.
And then when they hit a roadblock, they come up with another idea. And it's not what I'm suggesting.
Okay. So you're suggesting not coming up with a different idea, but to just improve the one you've got.
Correct. Now, obviously, if it's a dead-end idea, it's a dead-end idea. But I've been with guys that cycle through 10 or 15 business models in a one-year period.
Right. And they're the common denominator, right? When you look at all those models that you went through that quote-unquote didn't work, what's the common denominator? It's you. Got it.
Des Moines, Iowa. My bride is just saying goodbye.
Oh, okay.
But, hey, listen,
Yes.
Did we miss anything here?
No. I'm sorry. You've got my, like, the wheels spinning, and I'm like, I'm gonna be reading and researching and writing and going crazy today. But no, that was excellent, Max. Max, what has been one of the most rewarding things that's happened in your career?
The most rewarding thing that's happened in my career, I believe that to those much is given, much is expected. And I believe that creating opportunities and impacting the lives of others. And we have a recent thing, I think we probably talked about it a bit at dinner, but we about 10 months ago on a whim, I hired a homeless guy. And his name is Duke. And I was trying to help him get on his feet. He was a very abused child. I mean, the most abused child I'd ever run into. And he needed a break. I didn't know if he had a heart to change and to embrace an opportunity. So I put him through some tests and decided that I would help him. He's a big guy. He was dropped out of high school, 10th grade, because he had to support his mother, who was an alcoholic prostitute, and they were homeless. And just a horrible story. And so I said, well, I'm going to help him get his GED, and then I'll help him get a job right away at a metal fabricator. He's a big 6'3.5", 350 pounds, strong guy. We'll get him, and we'll see if we can get a life. He just left his wife and baby son because he couldn't support them and all this. Anyway, and so I said, I said, what do you do? What do you do for fun? And he said, well, I like to play on my computer at night. I'm really good at computers. He said, I have an old one, but I've learned to get a lot out of it. And I said, well, what do you do? He said, well, I look to this, and I try this, and I experiment putting this together with that. And it really intrigued me. So I was going to leave, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go home. We just had an early dinner, and I said, we're starting Buzzion. I want you to go to the website, look at Buzzion, then I want you to go out and find 6 competitors of ours for me, and just do a quick analysis of them. I'm just testing them. He said, okay. So I stopped once on the way home. So it was about an hour and a half before I got home. When I got home, on my computer was waiting 6 artfully and perfectly constructed SWOT analyses of 6 competitors. of Buzzion.
Really?
And I was floored. And so the next day I went to see him. I said, listen, I was going to hire an intern for Buzzion. I'm going to take a gamble on you. I'm going to pay you minimum wage until you earn your keep, and I want you to show me your stuff. And I gave him a lot of coaching. I said, you're going to work for Jason. You met in California. And he said, tell me the one piece of advice that I should focus on. Keep it simple. I said, make yourself invaluable. Just make yourself, do whatever there is that has to be done, make yourself invaluable. Long story short, it was the best hire I ever made. Wow. Guy's brilliant. He's working with Jason. He's launching Buzzion. We gave him the nickname. His call sign is R2D2 because he can fix anything. He, by the way, would be a great interview for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we should set that up.
Yeah, he will inspire you, and he's on his way. He's back with his wife and son. They're having another baby, and so what makes me feel great, what makes me feel like a man, a great human being, seeing him prosper.
Yeah, Max, I have the biggest smile on my face. I'm just so blessed and grateful to have crossed your path. Max, how does anyone reach out to you if they want to connect with you, or maybe even look at hiring your firm, or just getting involved in some way?
We can go through CRD. I have a very simple email. I'm comfortable with anybody reaching out to me directly, and it's simply max@sales.Max.com.
That's awesome.
Max@sales.Max.com. No letters. I mean, no numbers. It's all letters.
Max@sales.Max.com. Well, Max, thank you so much for your time today. Wow, what an awesome call and interview. I'm definitely going to make a point to come down and visit you someday with Mark. And just thank you for for all you've done and been, and just again for sharing with us today.
Well, thank you, buddy. You're doing the Lord's work. We really appreciate that. And anything I can do as part of the effort, reach people, help people. You want to do another podcast, let me know. If you want some other great Americans like Duke, Jason Sullivan would be another great interview. And if you'd like, the CEO of Outback and other guys like that, we got to get the word out. Just let me know.
Okay, sounds like a plan. You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.